Namaste and welcome to the second season of Future Fit Corporates. My name is Bhavana Issar and I'm the founder CEO of Caregiver Saathi. In this season, we are going global and shifting the narrative. Caregiving is not a career obstacle or something that organizations must accommodate. It's a leadership accelerator. And through candid conversations with corporate leaders, consultants, and change makers, we explore how caregiving shapes resilience, empathy, and innovation. Let's discover what it truly takes to build workplaces that don't just include caregivers, but recognize that caregiving experience is an asset. Because the future of work is not just tech, female, or inclusive, it's compassionate, it's innovative, and therefore caregiver friendly. Welcome to Future Fit Corporates. Greetings of the day. Welcome to yet another episode of Future Fit Corporates. We believe that investing in people is the fundamental way of nurturing success. However, a fundamental care about of most workplaces, especially corporates, is how are we future fit? What does it mean to be future fit? Given the circumstances and the world around us is rather dynamic and changing every single day. Future Fit Corporates is our initiative aimed at fostering caring workplaces and envisioning future-ready corporate cultures. We believe very strongly that workplaces of the future need to be caregiver-friendly, inclusive for all genders and all kinds of experiences. But it does take a leadership of a certain kind to shape such a work culture. What does that look like? What does it mean to be innovative and resilient on an ongoing basis, given whatever history that we have? In today's dynamic corporate landscape, the success of an organization is intricately tied to the well-being and satisfaction of its workforce. And this initiative is aimed at having conversations with leaders, CEOs, thought leaders through video interviews, podcasts, and written responses with a goal to explore, discuss, and champion the integration of employee well-being into the core fabric of corporate strategies. You know that season 2 is about taking the conversations about caregivers global, and it is my absolute delight today to have with us a very dear friend, Joelle, for this conversation. Welcome, Joelle.
Thank you, Bhavana. It's a pleasure to be here.
To introduce Joelle very quickly, although she has a fantastic career with very diverse and vast experience, she's a seasoned senior leader, consultant, and executive coach with over 20 plus years of experience helping organizations thrive through their people. She partners with leaders to align mission and vision with strategy, using attentive listening and deep understanding of organizational dynamics to develop impactful and actionable plans. Joelle's approach combines systems thinking, emotional intelligence, and a commitment to unlocking individual and collective potential. Her expertise spans organization design, leadership development, global HR strategy, and performance management. At the heart of her work is passion for fueling others so they can ignite their full potential. Joelle is one of the leading Gestalt OD practitioners, and I met her for the first time in the iGold program, and we have been friends since. I have learned much from her as a person and as a professional, and I'm so excited about this conversation. Welcome, Joelle.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a real joy to see you really thrive and take Caregiver Saathi out to the world. I think it's absolutely necessary for the future, and I'm just really pleased to be a part of it.
So, Joelle, what would you tell our audience about yourself that your resume does not cover? And how do you relate with the idea of caregivers or caregiver Saathi?
Yeah. So thank you. So I I think what's important to know is not only have I been an executive coach, I've raised two children who are teenagers now. One of them's about to graduate from high school and go on to whatever's next in the world. And as far as a caregiver, truly caregiver, I also um, have my 87-year-old father living with me who I've been taking care of for the last 8 or so years since my mother passed away. And I'm the guardian of an adult with a disability. So I have a lot of caregiving responsibilities as well as a lot of rather significant work responsibilities. And I have compassion and empathy and for anyone who takes uh, all of this on because it is a very challenging to be sandwiched, as we call it in the United States, with caregiving older adults and children.
I think you will not mind my sharing this, but one of your special things is how you nurture older dogs in their last few years. And you are an incredible caregiver to them as well. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. Tell us a little about that.
Sure. I've also had kind of a parallel career where I volunteered for local dog rescue, actually, a couple of national dog rescues. And I take in homeless dogs that need rehabilitation for medical reasons or emotional reasons, get them well, and find them new homes. So that is kind of a side um, thing that I do. It's been great for my kids. It's been great for my father. These animals otherwise wouldn't probably find homes. And it's been a real deep privilege and joy in my life.
I have been so fascinated by it, and I find it such a yeoman service and such an incredible thing to do. I don't know too many people who do this as in such a committed way as you do. So thank you for that role modeling.
Rescue dog as well. So you have gone through that journey.
Yes. I think it teaches us compassion in a way that nothing else does. Joelle, what I'd like for you to do is look at your career and probably give us insights over the years of what you have seen about women at the workplace as well as caregivers at the workplace, and how has that evolved over time?
I think when it comes to women in the workplace, we take one step or two steps forward, one step back. I see women being more recognized, more invited to the table. I see women stepping up and working on their education and coming forward. And there's still very much a glass ceiling. It's still very much a man's world. And what I have been really interested in studying is how can women lean into the feminine traits that come into leadership as opposed to just acting like a man to get ahead. I mean, I think women have innate strengths as women that really lean into taking care of work cultures, making them more collaborative, less competitive, uh, and being more healthy, which allows for people to, especially women and men, to do things in their lives. We don't live. We should not be living to work. We should be working to live. Particularly in the United States, there are a lot of toxic cultures where you just burn yourself out to try and get ahead. But the reality is, when you're on your deathbed, nobody looks back and says, "Oh, I wish I spent more time at work." Our families and our communities are much more important than our jobs. But to succeed in our jobs. You have to balance all of that and be able to take a stand and say, no, I need this time to take care of my family. It makes me a better human being. It allows us to lean into our compassion and empathy, and it makes us a better leader.
Yeah, I think it is important for us to tell our audience that you are based in Seattle and most of your experience is in the United States. And of course, you're an international leader. So you've led teams around the world. You've had teams in Africa and in Asia. And what have been your observations as a leader, a global leader, about the commonalities and differences across regions? And how have you seen them change perhaps over time?
Commonalities are mostly around the work, doing mission. A lot of the organizations that I've supported are mission-based work.
Yes.
Definitely have supported corporate work as well. The differences are strong. I find that outside of the United States in particular, that there is much more balance, and
Mm.
it's not as driven to people are just not pushed to work to ridiculous hours. They get to go home to their families. Even in Europe, people go home, take a nice long lunch. Vacations in Europe are all of August, which is impressive. Um, I would say there is a change happening globally where
Mm.
younger professionals are starting to lean in more to a more, I hate to use the term Americanized workforce, but I'm seeing them push themselves. And I don't think that's necessarily healthy. I don't find that the United States has a particularly healthy work environment. Um, I I look at like Scandinavia, for example, and there's a 5 year paid or 5 year off to take care of your children, and then you can go right back into your job. There's some interesting protections there. Um, in Africa and Asia, I find that people are able to find help more often to help with their families. Not always, but uh, I do see that, and it is they still prioritize family. That's very
Mm.
important, I think. Um, so those are just a few of the differences. I mean, there's a lot of things I could talk about culture that I've learned. Um, but I am very impressed with cultures that still embrace family and still embrace the roles um, of caregiver that we all will have in life.
So let's go deeper into that. Why? So the nature of family has been changing for many years now. And why are you impressed with the idea of family? Because now families are more nuclear, families are more distributed, and it almost feels like, there's a flux. We don't really know. There isn't a fixed idea of a family and what a family should do or norms and things like that. So we seem to be evolving. Why are you a fan of the idea of family?
I think families are very much evolving and how people define it. But at the end of the day, um, family is kind of what defines our community, whether it's chosen family or your nuclear family. That's where meaning is found in life. And as
Mm,
I've said before, when nobody on their deathbed thought that they should spend more time at work. So when we think about what gives us meaning in life, it's connection to others. And not everybody can be in their family of origin, but they will create families in
nice.
whatever they look like, so that you have meaning in your life. And that
S-
that's something that's
I like the distinction that you make about you have a family of origin, and that doesn't need to be your family that you choose to identify with, but you could have a family that you build because it gives you a sense of meaning and connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think our Gestalt journey together with all the people we went through at all to the different countries, that has an essence of family to me. Um,
Yeah,
these
that's
are
true.
that it's very hard to make close connections in adulthood, and that created those close connections.
So that's interesting. And then, there are some organizations that would say that the work culture is that of a family, but, there is a difference of opinion there, that workplaces are performative places. That's where you come, you deliver performance, you get paid for it. It has nothing to do with purpose, belonging, or, that as much. I mean, of course, those are desirable things, but that are secondary. Delivering performance is primary. And don't expect your workplace to be a family. A family is separate from a workplace. How would you react to that?
I agree. Uh, a workplace can have a healthy culture, but it should
Mhm.
not be family. The
Mm.
the reality is people are there for whatever interest they're there for. And I've seen many people make the mistake of developing very close relationships, maybe even inappropriate relationships at the workplace. And then something happens and that workplace is no longer viable. Perhaps somebody leaves or they are terminated. And it's devastating to people's egos. And so I feel strongly that people should have professional boundaries in the workplace and not wrap up their identity in what they do. Your identity should be who you are and
Mm.
how you carry yourself in this world. And if a workplace asks you to um, challenge your own values, that's not a place you stay. That's just not a
Mm.
place. So it's important to
Mm.
find a workplace that where you can be who you are as an authentic person, keep professional boundaries, work, and then when it doesn't work anymore, find the next opportunity.
One of the things from the first bit of this conversation that I have been stuck with, and I think I'd like to double click on, is what you mentioned about a feminine way of looking at things and feminine leadership. Can you um, can you explain that in greater detail as how you see it? And where do you see, you know, what is masculine leadership? What is feminine leadership? How do you see it? How can we understand it?
Men and women look at the world differently, just in
Mhm.
general. Women, because we are the bearers of life, because we give birth to the next generation, there is something inherent with us to take care, like to
Yeah.
take care of the next generation, to raise the next generation. Who gets, when my brother certainly didn't step up when my father needed care. I did. So,
Mm.
even though he has more freedom than I do. So, women tend to just want things to be healthy. We don't want to send our sons off to war. We want to create healthy environments wherever we are. We want to feed people. We want to take care of people. It's just natural. And I find that women leaders, when they're leaning into their feminine sides, they can still be strong, they can still be clear, but there's something in them that says, take care of this. Lead from authenticity. Be compassionate when people are having trouble in their lives. Seek first to understand. It's not always about the bottom line. And I find more often in male leadership, they're trained from a very early age, go home, or go out to the world, make money, bring the money home. And that is what they're socialized and expected to do in the workplace. Women can come forward in in a different way. They can still have that professionalism. They can still lead organizations, but they show up differently. I think that they often listen differently, and it's acceptable to be in that way. It makes me I find it very disturbing when I meet women that feel they have to show up exactly as their male colleagues. And that just brings a fracture to what naturally can happen when women take other women under their wing and nurture them and try to raise them up in the organization. If you work to make sure that others are successful, you will naturally rise. I never wanted to be C-suite. It never even occurred to me as a young person. And I found myself in leadership role after leadership role because I took care of people and I nurtured the next generation. So as I did that, I kept getting promoted and found myself as in the C-suite um, pretty early in my career.
So would you say that men can be feminine and women can be masculine?
Absolutely. I think gender is fluid in some cultures. That's embraced in some cultures. It's not. Uh, and so I believe that anybody can choose whatever they want to lean into. Society reinforces gender roles. We don't have to buy into that. We can be
Mm.
who we want to be.
And there is a fixed idea of a leader which is more masculine than it is feminine. And that's problematic because that's becoming toxic.
It's a societal construction. And it doesn't have to be that way, but it is a societal construction. And it is very prevalent. So
Yeah.
it
And
favors aggression. It favors, someone who stands. It favors that warrior from so long ago. Um, and yet you look at, you know, various like spiritual leaders around the world, and they had um, a much more calm presence that inspired people to rise. And that's who I try to study. And there are just as many men that I study as women when it comes to those types of leaders.
what, in your experience, have been some of the best practices or policies or, some things in workplaces that have nurtured men and women who have had caregiving responsibilities? What can organizations look to do from an active intervention standpoint, like policies and practices?
I think the first thing is to seek first to understand.
Okay.
Understand what limitations are, understand what they need to do, and be able to create uh, uh, be clear on what deliverables need to be delivered in the workplace, but maybe how that's delivered can be examined in a different way. COVID shut the world down for a while, and all of us like ended up that if we could in our homes. I mean, there are a lot of careers that can't be done from the home, but a lot can be. And particularly for caregivers, it was a great reprieve because you can go throw a load of laundry in, you can make your the person you're caregiving lunch, and you can come back and hit meetings and still be able to deliver. For me personally, it took depending on the day, up to 4 hours off of my commute time to be able to work from
Mm.
home. That's a long commute, and it was all due to traffic, not distance. But being at home, getting that 4 hours back, it was huge. I was much more productive. I was much less tired. So taking a look at what people need, listening to them, and then adapting your policies so that they can still do their jobs, particularly in professional type level jobs that
Mm.
maybe don't need to be in an office.
So flexibility and listening to people is definitely a good practice. COVID taught us that, but we have struggled with it right now. We know many organizations are not convinced that work from home is a good culture building practice, that we need people to interact with each other, and we need people to meet and have the coffee conversations if we want to have high performing cultures. So, as someone who has been an architect of workplace cultures, how would you diagnose this, and what would you recommend to leaders and HR leaders about work from home, flexibility, trying to include people with different needs?
I think particularly in professional settings, it doesn't need to be a 9 to 5. We can
Mhm.
work at different times. I actually had an employee tell me that she really appreciated us being on Zoom or Teams because everybody's square was the same size. So nobody
Oh,
got the head of the table. Nobody was like that. She felt like she could talk to executives, and she felt like that was the great equalizer. And I really appreciated that perspective. I had not thought about that, but it is true. I mean, when you're in an in-person meeting, usually the highest leader sits at the head of the table, or they sit in the front, and everybody else is, falls in line. So that was really that was very eye-opening for me. Another thing was that I found, so I had teams in Africa, in Asia, in China, in India, Southeast Asia. I had them all over the world, and using working from home and being virtual allowed us to have meetings with all of these people in the same space. So I felt like
yeah.
it built our culture. And we started to focus on tools like the intercultural development inventory, which I
Mm.
highly recommend, that really took a developmental approach and look at how we looked at similarity and difference across culture, and how we might open our minds more to embrace other cultures, to understand what that diversity of thought and experience brings to the team.
That's incredible. Um, So, if you were to make a case to a CEO or a CFO to invest in some, it means investment to say that you need to give flexibility, you need to give time off, etc., and that's an expense. How would you make a compelling business case for making that investment? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people are primarily looking at the bottom line.
So, a recent Society for Human Resources Management, which is the certification body in the US, it has a global arm as
Yes,
well,
yes.
studied and that the cost of turnover, by the time you get somebody in the door and up to speed and working, which is like an entire year, the cost of the first year is 2.5 times the annual salary. So
Mm,
retention is key. I
mm,
think there's a culture that is happening where we don't value people. We just think we can go get someone else. That's expensive. And you also
mm.
lose organizational history. You also see morale take a hit. And all of those things translate to dollars. So if you
Right.
are able to create an environment that's healthy, doesn't have people leave and suing the organization, doesn't you don't have constant turnover in roles, so you have people feel steady, and you're flexible so they can be committed. I think the return on investment is far greater than 2.5 times the annual salary.
That's
But
right.
that is something that very much gets the eye of the C-suite, is the cost of turnover.
One of the other trends these days is that workplaces are exhausting people, workplaces are causing stress, anxiety, even burnout. So, what, according to you, would be some of the things that you may have seen? Or you can also do some blue sky thinking and say, what do you wish that workplaces did to have healthier work cultures that took into account potential exhaustion, stress, or burnout?
Yeah. I'm seeing huge changes, at least in the US, and in generational thinking around the
Mm-hmm.
workplace. With every new generation, they don't like how their parents were treated in the workplace. And so they reinvent themselves. The younger generations coming into the workplace now are demanding things that their parents would have never thought of. They just would have put up with. And so it's, if we're not listening to this, we are wasting money. But
Yeah.
I think healthy cultures are the most important function. And that means making sure that leaders are equipped with emotional and social intelligence competencies.
Mm-hmm.
Being an abusive, demanding, authoritarian leader just doesn't fly anymore. It doesn't make business sense and it doesn't make sense for the culture. People are loyal to leaders who care about them, who are vested in their development, and are very concerned with making sure that workplaces are healthy, that they're free from abuse or harassment. Uh, Adaptive leadership is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Heifetz, you can read Heifetz if you're interested in more about that. But it's really understanding that a workplace culture is a living, created moment by moment thing. It's not fixed. And it changes with leaders. So the more leaders step up, they work on their vertical development and they work on those emotional and social intelligence competencies, as well as these hard kinds of things, these hard competencies, the hard skills like, business acumen. If you balance it with soft skills, you will find really, really successful companies. There was a recent company in Seattle, I don't remember what it was, where the CEO was just super innovative, and he really listened to his people. He also decided not to have some huge salary. He didn't. His salary was the same as essentially other people in his organization, and he just led by example, and his company just took off. I mean, it just really grew within the last couple of years. I haven't heard anything recently about it, but it was a big thing around Seattle to see, wow, there's this CEO that's actually walking their talk. It was impressive, and the loyalty was there.
Um, you said that you've been a caregiver, you've brought up children, you cared for your dad, and they're two different things. Um, could you tell us what would you have liked for your workplace to have considered in the years that you were occupied or distracted or consumed by caregiving?
Yeah. I think for young parents, I mean, the first, 5 years, 6 years is really hard. I, you have difficulty finding the right childcare. If you do, it's super expensive. So, flexible hours, definitely.
Mm,
Understanding, oh, I've got to go deal with diaper changes, or I've got to put him down for a nap. Okay, I've got this 2 hours. Let me super focus on getting things done in that 2 hours before she wakes up. Um, so I think flexibility is key. Uh, it's much different with my aging father. Um, he has mobility issues. There's challenges there, and so I can be more focused. But when he needs me, I need to step away. And I've been fortunate that um, I could be in the middle of a meeting and I'd say, I'm really sorry, I need 5 minutes. And it was understood. And I've just been very fortunate in that way. And I've also been very understanding. I had someone who worked for me had a baby and was not married. And just for the first 6 months, the child was sick. And for the first 6 months, I let her work from home almost
Mm.
exclusively. Her mother came in and helped, but there was just a lot of, I'm investing in this person. I wanted this person to step into my role when I eventually stepped away. And, she was in her mid 30s and she was very excited, her last chance to have a baby. I I wanted to support that. And so I did. And it also meant I had to defend her to other managers who were like, "Where is she? Why is she not here?" And so
Great
I
point.
yeah, I think it takes some intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, "I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do." And at the time, I was the chief HR officer for a global NGO, and part of our mission was to work on gender equity. Well, you can't work on gender equity if you don't allow for your own employees to have time for their caregiving needs. So
Yeah.
I push back about we need to walk our talk.
You have witnessed the arc of diversity, equity, and inclusion and where it is right now. I'd like for you to comment on it. I'd like for you to talk about its significance, its practice, and perhaps its abuse.
Hmm.
All three.
I think the most important thing that I can say is DE&I is culturally it needs to be taken into account from a cultural
Mhm,
perspective. Must have
mhm.
that lens. Because what it is in the US is not exactly what it is in India. It's not what it was in Tanzania. And so cultural context is everything. I think the other thing is we need to look at facets of identity and how that shows up and what it means to people. So it's not a one-stop shopping. It's not. It's a very complex um, formula that we need to take a look at, and we really need leaders to understand um, power dynamics. So, if people have multiple subordinated identities versus a whole bunch of dominant identities, they may need more support to be able to come into the workplace in the same fashion. Um, in the US, white straight men uh, oftentimes have they have a good old boy system, and I have experienced that throughout my career, where if you're not if you have invisible identities, a disability, something like that that people may not be able to see, a healthy culture will help people to find ways to make it more equitable for everyone to succeed. I think DE&I is in the United States right now is completely under attack under the current administration. Um, I know most of my colleagues who work specifically in DE&I are unemployed by this time. But if we don't understand where people are coming from, if we don't appreciate that um, someone coming with different lenses from different identities can contribute very, very differently to organizations, we're missing something significant. If a company is selling a product, well, then they need to know who their customers are. And those customers may, they're going to have different facets of their identity. So it's a challenging time right now.
As a
It definitely.
Gestalt practitioner, when you see the system react to something like this, and clearly the system is reacting, there is a set of people that are resisting the use of DEI. They're probably thinking that DEI has been abused or misused, and they are reacting in a particular way. Now, as a change facilitator or as a Gestalt practitioner, how would you make meaning of this attack? And how would you pave the next few steps? Given that we understand DEI is a very important thing, but we have a large chunk of people resisting and saying, this doesn't work. We need to go back to our, traditional ways of knowing and doing things. What can DEI practitioners do differently?
That is a huge question. I'll try
Sorry.
and come up with something simple in that I really think there are only two base emotions, um,
Mm,
fear and love. And when you find resistance, usually it has to do with fear, fear of
yes,
losing something.
yes.
And you choose love. You can choose love. So I think if you understand where the resistance in the system is coming from and address those fears, and some of them
Mm,
might be legitimate, um, and you can paint a very clear picture of what we're moving towards rather than what we're moving away from, but where we're moving to, what benefit there will be for every group. Um, then I think you can get enough momentum going in change management to move systems. I know when I was working for a very large aircraft manufacturer, we had a couple of 100,000 people. And in order to do change management in that level of system with all those people in different cultures all over the world, we had to go out and talk to the various departments and divisions and what were their hopes, what was their pain, and
mm,
what were their fears. And then we had to bring that back to the team that was doing the transformation and make sure that they understood what, you know, what were these elements that we needed to address in the change. Once we addressed it and we were clear and transparent about what we were trying to do and how we were doing it and continued to get feedback, we had much more support for the change. And eventually, it happened. But we had to be very clear on what was the old way, the people, processes, and systems, and what was the new way, and how were we going to get there and get that buy-in. That's absolutely critical for success long term.
yeah. I see so many skills over there that leaders would need. So, for example, being open to listen to people and hear them out, being non-judgmental, being listening in a way that kind of brings out the real stuff and not the contrived or the stuff that you want to hear, but the real stuff is a
Yeah.
skill for sure. Understanding emotions and being able to cut through emotions. So, for example, something presents itself in a particular way, but you really are able to cut through that to see, is it fear? Is it love? What's
Mhm.
the tonality, etc. Seems to be an incredible skill not too many people have. And then to be able to distill and synthesize it, I think requires another level of skill. So to put it in a meaningful format and then to have a plan which paints a picture, I think requires skills of storytelling, painting a picture, communication, energizing, inspiring. My God, those are many, many skills that, probably leaders need to have. In your experience of, what you have seen of other caregivers and yourself, what do you believe are certain skills and competencies that a caregiver can bring to the workplace?
Top of the list is compassion and empathy because you have to have that.
Yeah.
I think also being a caregiver means that you're adaptive all the time because you
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen. You never know. Is there going to be a fall? Is there going to, or is there going to be a medical emergency? Is there going to be something that comes up? So having that skill to remain calm in the storm, in the eye of the storm, and be able to adapt. And that means take in the information, synthesize it, respond. Um, and I think that's really important. And I do say respond, not just react, because when you're responding, you are centered. You're using your parasympathetic nervous system. You're connected to your left prefrontal cortex, which is your meaning making center, as opposed to being in a panic And then you've got your sympathetic nervous system going crazy, and it's that reptilian brain. So that's you can't think. Those systems cannot work at the same time. So caregivers have to be they're so used to things happening that they really have trained themselves not to react to everything. They remain calm in the eye of the storm. So I think that in especially in workplaces that are constantly trying to respond to that external need, whatever that is, whether it's selling computers and evolving with AI, or it's doing something good in the world through a nonprofit, it doesn't matter. You still need those skills.
Glad you brought the elephant in the room, the AI. How do you see AI influencing caregiving in general and care at the workplace?
I don't know yet, to be honest. I did read
I love the answer.
something. Yeah, I did read something recently where they were doing brain scans of people that used AI versus people that thought. And the brain scans of people that depended on AI, young people in particular, um, showed that there wasn't a lot of neural activity, which is kind of scary.
Mm,
So, really, the advantage to AI is people who already know how to do this, people of our age, who then can
mm.
use AI to write SOPs or do various things. But I don't see AI replacing certain skills. I just don't see it happening. I think that whole compassion, empathy, um, all of those soft skills, AI can't do that. It can just come up with technical skills. At least at this point, I don't see it doing that. But I think I know the workplace is changing tremendously. And those people skills will become absolutely imperative. Anybody can go to AI and go, write me this procedure. But to actually know how to execute it, to know how to do the change management that's involved with the people, to provide that leadership, that's not something AI can replace.
That's true. Also, to craft a good prompt and to know what to ask AI to do is perhaps a function of so many things. It's a function of your experience and deep understanding and your emotional connect. And I love the point that now it seems easy, but a generation later, this might mean a very different capability if there aren't enough neural connections in a generation. If they are depending so much, then you're not forming those connections, and that is problematic. I know it's really late where you are, and I'm very, very grateful for the amount of time that you have invested in this, and you invest with Caregiver Saathi in general and me in particular. Um, I know that we can continue this conversation and have many more conversations around this, but I think it is time that we bring this edition to a close. And, as a part of this podcast, we usually have a rapid fire to kind of see what people react to. Many of the guests have responded to the same set of questions. Are you open for that?
Sure, sure.
International Women's Day 2025 has a theme called Accelerate Action. Okay. So it's hashtag Accelerate Action. What does accelerate action mean to you?
I would say I would say go slow to go fast, but I think you
Oh,
have
nice.
impact, right? You need to have impact. You need to be able to uh, develop your reflection and action capabilities. But when it comes down to nothing's ever going to be perfect, just make an impact. You
Mm,
might make a mistake, you might learn from it, but look at it as a learning opportunity. Just make impact. Go for it.
yeah, yeah. So there is this whole thing that, like Women's Day, we've been trying to do so many things for getting women to, to a certain place. And it's high time we accelerate action. And I like your point. We need to go slow too. make the right impact. What is a bold opportunity that you will say yes to this year?
I am going to be spending a significant amount of time outside of the United States. And so I'm excited about that. And I am learning 3 languages right now. So I have been very focused on those languages so that I can work in these other countries.
It's very interesting because I think that learning a new language wires your brain and your neural networks very, very differently and can actually prevent cognitive decline. So
Absolutely. And I will not use the AI translator apps. I want to be able to communicate. So
nice, nice. Um, a call to action. What's your pledge for ongoing action?
action. I will live my values and make impact wherever I can. And I will stand up for those that don't have as strong of a voice as I do. I will always do that, whether it's human or animal.
Yes, I know that for sure. What advice would you give women to speak up at work?
Practice at home. Practice at home. Talk to your mirror. If there's things that you need to say, practice until it becomes comfortable. Like set yourself free. But I think practicing, especially if someone is shy, that can help them bring their voice forward. I remember once one of my mentors, Dr. John Carter. I love this man, head of the Gestalt Institute. Once, a long time ago, when I was in my first Gestalt program, I had mentioned that I'm shy, and he reframed that for me is that I was focusing inward instead of outward. And so,
Mm,
is that where I wanted to focus? Was just inward? Did I want to be more self-absorbed, or did I want to make impact in the world? And it changed everything for me.
mm,
Realizing that, I wanted to make impact in the world. I wanted to see things get better for a lot of people, and for animals. So bring my voice forward anytime I could.
mhm. So practice and reframe. Nice. Um, what's the biggest challenge both men and women face as a caregiver?
Time. Time
Mm,
is the most precious resource. And so I would say use it wisely.
mm,
Sometimes you have to say no and not yet to
mm,
certain types of things. And I think in organizations, that's a key skill to develop as well, to be able to say no and not yet. Sometimes it's a flat no, and oftentimes it's just not right now. It's going to have to be later. So, and resiliency, focus on your own resiliency. If you get sick, you can't take care of who you're taking care of. Make sure you take time for you.
well said. What a wonderful conversation this has been, Joelle. And I didn't expect anything less. How would you reflect back on this conversation and any closing remarks you might have?
Well, it's just been a joy and a privilege and an honor to be here with you. I've been watching your journey to develop Caregiver, Saathi, and give it to the world. It's so needed. Um, and I'm so inspired by your work and your commitment. And just thank you. Just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful for our friendship.
Me as well.
Thank you for watching this episode of Future Fit Corporates. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't let it end here. Join the Future Fit Corporates Club or the FFC Club. Explore our full dossier and discover powerful blogs from our past speakers. Let's move beyond inclusion as a buzzword. Let's make diverse experiences, especially experiences of caring for others, caregiving, a leadership strength. Together, we can truly build not just a caring world, but future fit workplaces. Until next time, take care and let's keep the conversation on.